Well, everyone, the Samsung Galaxy S21 is by far one of the more interesting phones that Samsung has ever made. So let's go and see how this particular phone holds up in 2024 and see if it's still worth buying. Now, if you want to pick up some phones I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can also support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the Samsung Galaxy S21's outside, this particular phone I would still say looks pretty good. You know, it doesn't really look like a super old phone, and it's not really that old of a phone. It's like 3 years old as of this point, and it's a pretty good looking device when you actually look at it. So you are still getting that 6.2-inch dynamic AMOLED display on the front. It's a 1080p panel, 120 Hz. It's pretty common what you'd probably expect nowadays from most like mid-tier phones. This thing's kind of like a mid-tier phone. I would say it's a top-end but flagship phone, but from Samsung's own lineup, it's the lowest S series. They have the Plus and the Ultra. And the thing with this particular phone is that it's a little complicated because it's a good display. It fares well against something like the Galaxy S23 and probably even the S24 when that comes out. But the issue is that the S20 was just so much, I would say, a better display than this thing, that this display was kind of like a downgrade. Also, the S21 Plus had a really good display too. So this one from the whole entire S series really didn't have as amazing of a display, but it's still a good display nonetheless. And having 120 Hz on a display like this is very, very nice to have. Now, beyond this, you're still getting things like the fingerprint sensor in the display, very common features you'd expect from most phones, and it's still a very good looking display as well. Now, across the rest of this device, you're basically getting like flat sides, but not really. It's kind of like a curved side to it. USB Type-C port on the bottom with Samsung DeX, which is so cool. It's so cool to have. Another issue though, was that this was basically the first Samsung phone, I think since like the Galaxy S7, to remove the microSD card slot. So it would have been really, really nice to have that type of capability. Unfortunately, we did not have it. So we're basically stuck with this phone, which is fine. I don't want to say stuck with. We have this phone, which is amazing, but it would have been nice had we had that type of capability at that time. We don't. There's not much we can do about it. Now, moving on from that, another thing, this is where it just gets so funny with this device. You were basically getting a plastic back on this phone. Now, it's a frosted plastic back, which is probably better, but you're missing out on a glass back on this phone. Now, Samsung did end up bringing a frosted glass back later on with this particular phone, which was pretty cool, but we basically missed out on a frosted glass back on this particular phone. So that was very weird. We went from a solid glass back before to the plastic back on this phone. I don't really have any idea what Samsung was trying to do in this particular case. I feel like that was very, very weird. I don't even know what they were trying to do, but they were trying to save money. They were trying to cut corners here and there. And I definitely do think Samsung learned from this, because they did go ahead and basically switch out on the next phone after this and basically gave us, the solid build quality, frosted, glass back, all this other capability on this phone, which was really cool. So in my particular case, and what I'll tell you is that the Samsung Galaxy S21 on the exterior, yeah, it is kind of a little weird here and there, but you're still getting a lot of stuff that I actually like a lot about this phone. Things like reverse wireless charging, things like a really good, 120 Hz display. There's still a lot to like on this phone on the outside, and I will tell you, even with that plastic back, there's still there's an advantage of that. Like, it's harder to break here and there, and if it breaks, it's probably cheaper to replace or something like that. There's probably some advantage there too. So I will tell you, over time, I've actually grown to like this phone now, which is very funny. But at that time when this phone came out, I was not that big of a fan of it, and I was actually very, very saddened by it. Now, moving on to the camera side of things, this is probably still one of the better aspects of this phone, and even though Samsung cut corners here and there, this camera was still very good. You were getting that triple camera setup on the backside, so a 12 megapixel wide, 64 megapixel telephoto, then a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and you were also getting a 10 megapixel camera on the front. Now, you were getting 4K 60 on the front and the back as always, and you were still maintaining that 8K capability on the back of this phone that the Galaxy S20 debuted with. So that was a very cool feature to have on this phone as well. Out of all the corners, Samsung cut, I'm glad they didn't cut through this corner because it would have been really weird. But I really liked how this phone had that type of capability, and it was a very nice thing for Samsung to kind of keep. Now, I also like the camera features Samsung has added since this phone has came out. So kind of think about that. Out of all the things that Samsung has done, there were lots and lots of features that Samsung brought onto this phone, specifically in the camera, that this phone basically didn't even have when it first came out. So that was something that was very cool going on with this particular phone, and something I liked a lot. Now, I'll also add, like, with the build quality and everything, the camera quality is still very good. It's better than the build quality of this phone, which is very funny. So even applications like Snapchat and Instagram and all those apps, although they don't perform the highest levels all the time on these types of phones, it still is going to be giving you a good camera quality. And out of this, stock camera application that we're using here, you're probably going to still be getting like the best camera quality, but it's still very cool what you're getting. It's a very good camera. No matter really what you're going to do with it, you're going to be in good hands. And that's something I like a lot about this particular phone. So from the camera side of things, definitely gets a thumbs up from me. Now, in terms of software and longevity, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. So with the Samsung Galaxy S21, we're basically stuck at a time where this phone, is, I don't know if One UI 6 is going to be its last version of software. There's a chance Samsung will go ahead and expand the software experience and the software, life on this type of phone. I think it's like 50-50, but I would probably say that for the most part, there's a high chance this phone may end up getting the next version of software, which I would be very, very happy with. So again, we're just going to have to kind of wait and see what kind of happens. But I will tell you that with something like the Samsung Galaxy S21, this is a phone that still has a very, very good, software longevity behind it. I would probably say that even if you get this phone this year and it doesn't get, One UI 7, I still think this phone is probably still worth buying from this point on, probably until the end of 2024, because, you're still going to be getting all those software updates, and even going into 2027, you're probably still going to be getting some security updates here and there as well. So I would probably say even up until the end of 2025, you might still be in a really good spot with this particular phone. Not perfect or anything, but still a better spot than you'd probably be on something like a Galaxy S20 or a Galaxy S10 at this point. So keep that in mind, but I still think the Galaxy S21 is still going to be getting another version of software hopefully this year in terms of security updates and maybe like a One UI 6.5 type of update or something. So that kind of covers it up here. Now, performance-wise, very funny. This phone has that Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 chipset inside with 8GB of RAM. And it's funny to me because on the exterior of this phone, I felt like it was kind of a downgrade from its predecessor. But I will tell you the performance of this phone, even in this day and age, it's still a very, very good performing phone. And that is something I love a lot about this particular device. When you're buying something like the Samsung Galaxy S21, you are still buying a phone that's going to be doing pretty well in terms of the build quality performance standpoint. So from really anything you're going to be doing for this particular phone, you're going to be getting a pretty solid experience, which is something I love seeing on this types of phones. You would not want to, get a phone like this, then have it already be outdated or, weird or anything like that. And you are going to be getting a very good phone from this thing from a performance standpoint, which is very, very nice to have. Now with something like the Galaxy S22 and S23, these ones have the newer, 8 Gen 1, 8 Gen 2 chipsets from Samsung, but I've seen a lot of people, even I've done my fair share of comparisons from performance, and I feel like a phone like the Galaxy S21 still compares fairly well against phones like the Galaxy S22 and S23. So even though this phone is a couple years old now, you're still getting a very good performing phone from something like the Galaxy S21, even in this day and age, which is awesome. And if you're planning on doing some emulation gaming or something, this phone is going to be giving you a really good experience from it as well. So to kind of sum it up, what I'll definitely tell you is, I definitely do think a phone like the Samsung Galaxy S21 is still completely worth buying for the most part. Now, I don't think it's like the first one I'd recommend. Like if you can, I would recommend buying like something like a Galaxy S23 Ultra or S22 Ultra, like those types of more expensive phones. But if you want to save some money, I think the S21 is like a very good, like well-rounded phone. Like, of course, there's phones that are better than this, but this is a very good phone that I actually like a lot. So keep it as you will, but that's a very, very good phone I'd highly recommend buying as well. So that kind of covers it up here. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.